Hello, everybody, and welcome to Just a Man in Sports. I am Casey Wright. Thank you for joining us either on YouTube, SoundCloud, or Apple Podcasts. Before we get the show started, we'd like to remind you that Just a Man in Sports is brought to you by Enigmatic Entertainment, producing entertainment both in the Orlando area and the entire East Coast. For more information, go on their website at engmtc.co or any social media platform at engmtcent. Joining me on the show for episode number 1. Yes, this is episode number 1 of Just a Man in Sports in our new era of just becoming a podcast. We're also on YouTube now, so it's kind of cool to get the video aspect of it. And for you out there to see the entire video itself, joining me is the one and only Mr. Mikey Jalen Rose Eastman, and that's not copyrighted. How you doing, Mikey?
I'm doing fantastic, Casey.
You look great today.
Thank
you
you.
always look great.
You look great. You're glowing.
Thank you. Well, it's the lighting in here is impeccable, so I can't take all the credit for my good looks.
Fair enough.
But we were supposed to have somebody else on the show this week, but Mikey is in the top 10, top 5, top 2, I think, of guests on the show. We should have the other guest coming hopefully within the next month or two. But Mikey took it out of his time to come do it today. He actually really loves being on these shows. He's excited for the coffee talk aspect of it. That's going to be his forte coming up soon. But it's nice to have him on the show today because the topics really relate towards your interests altogether. We have some college football, which is not your favorite, but then we have NCAA basketball, which you have a lot to talk about. And in closing the show today, we have a little perfect topic of my own that I'm actually happy to share with you because it's one of those things that like I'm gonna use an analogy and you're gonna be like, that's really weird and dumb why the Mets are doing this. A little personal thing, and I'm gonna be emotional about
that. It's New York, so I figure it's just a whole debacle.
Yeah, it's a complete whole debacle.
To say the least.
So let's get the show started, shall we? First episode, I'm really excited to get going. Our levels look great on the audio. We finally have that somewhat figured out now. The camera, by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, it will cut out at a certain point for today and maybe the next couple of shows. But don't worry, there's a new camera coming to the Just a Man in Sports channel very, very soon. Today in sports history, it is Christmas Day. Actually, we totally forgot. Merry Christmas, everybody. It's December 25th when the show is going to be arriving on air and on podcasts and all that stuff. So Merry Christmas to all of you out there.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
Everyone, mom and dad, if you're listening and or watching.
Happy holidays. They'll be watching. You'll
be watching
holidays.
I'm going to put it on the TV on Christmas Day.
Happy holidays to everybody. This is going to be fantastic.
Happy holidays to everyone.
So today in sports history, Christmas Day. You'd think that there were some pretty good sports and history things, a lot of which be coming from the NBA is the big sport that usually happens on Christmas Day. The NFL sort of stirs away depending on what day Christmas is. Christmas is today's Wednesday, so no NFL today, I believe. I think there's probably some college football games, but there may be NFL tomorrow.
Possibly
on Thursday.
Possibly some college basketball.
College basketball for sure.
The big
all
thing.
Those tournaments, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they
the
do
big
all
thing,
those.
The NBA games.
NBA games, that's right. The NBA games are the huge one. Today in sports history is our first one. Mikey, we have to go travel all the way back. Let's go all the way back to 1888 is our first today in sports history.
Way back Wednesday, brother.
Way back. And it's not basketball. It's not football. It's baseball, actually. The first indoor baseball game ever was played at the fairgrounds in Philadelphia. Now, you can't imagine that this indoor facility was probably like the Atlanta Falcons Stadium or like the Miami Marlins ballpark. This stadium probably looked very similar to Tropicana Field, just because of the way Tropicana Field is.
Also, the date on that is super interesting. So, like
1888. Think about that. The first indoor that's crazy,
baseball
right?
game. Like, I would have thought that would have happened like a lot later in time, if I'm honest.
So would I. I mean, 1888. Come on now. Like that's one of those things. Like, there's no shot I would have known that.
No,
not at all. Moving a little bit further in time, about almost 100 years later, 1971 was the longest NFL game ever played at 82 minutes and 40 seconds as the Dolphins beat the Chiefs 27-24. Now, 82 minutes and 40 seconds of gameplay. That's not a continuous time. I know how baseball usually does timing. Like they'll say that game start to finish was 4 or 5 hours from, in between innings and all that. This was just gameplay. Now, Mikey and I did the math just a moment ago, and we found out this is not that incredible.
It's a lot crazier on paper.
It's a lot crazier to look on paper. That's why I put it on here. 82 minutes and 40 seconds, Mikey, is how long in hours?
It's an hour and 22 minutes.
Hour and 22 minutes.
And 40 seconds.
And the regular NFL game today is 15 minutes a quarter, which means it's only 20 minutes over.
Yeah, 60 minutes for
so
the whole game.
20 minutes of extra gameplay. For those football players, they'd probably be saying to me, Casey, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah, no.
But for, a basketball player and a baseball player,
it's not a lot.
That's not a lot. So, our games are a lot longer sometimes. But And then our final sports in history, let's go about 30, almost 40-something years later. Phil Jackson in 2008 became the 6th coach in NBA history to win 1,000 games. And we see this way more in the NCAA nowadays with some coaches because they're long tenured.
Coach longevity in NCAA is just a lot longer than the NBA, especially now in this era. Because I mean, you see like good example, Fizdale and the Knicks. One season, 20 games, 25 games in.
Mikey's already talking smack about the Knicks.
And he's gone.
He's gone.
And Fizdale, I respect Fizdale a lot. So
he is gone.
This is honestly, it's a huge feat, especially right before the 2010, the decade, and that seems to be the talk of the last month because it's the end of the decade.
The decade is ending. Yeah.
That's a big feat to win 1,000 games in the NBA at a professional level.
Yeah.
That's huge.
So let's move things on. That was Today in Sports History. We do that before every single show. The introduction is exactly the same. There's going to be no difference. And we knew that this show would probably take a little bit longer. The show's supposed to be about 30 minutes, but today I'm thinking it's going to be around 35, 40 minutes, depending on all the topics we get to today. Topic number 1 was voted upon by you, the fans of Just a Man in Sports. We had 2 different topics that we were thinking about talking about. Mikey probably voted for NBA review, but
I always will.
But bowl games did win, and we're just going to talk about the college football playoff, those 4 games in depthly, and then we're going to talk about one New Year's 6 game that interests us coming up on New Year's Day. College football playoff review. The college football playoff game number 1, number 4 Oklahoma versus number 1 LSU. It's the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl at 4 p.m. I believe. Oh, there's our first mess up right there. Mikey dropped his phone. Good thing he doesn't need that for today.
I don't.
I actually don't. I'm actually going to do this right now and check with the date of this. I just had this up 5 seconds ago, and I didn't put the date of these games. How embarrassing is that? Can we put that? Remember we used to have the errors on the show? Saturday, December 28th is the college football playoff, and it's weird because you have the New Year's 6 games, you have all these other things. You think it's on a particular day. I don't know why it's not on New Year's Eve or something like that on higher viewing day.
My game is on New Year's Day.
Yeah, but that's your New Year's 6 bowl. But the college football playoffs.
No,
why are they on the 28th?
It's like spread out too.
Yeah, it's weird.
You would think it'd be like on significant days like Christmas Eve,
and then the championship isn't until, and again, very embarrassing. I have to look these up.
Deep in January.
Yeah, it's January 13th, so it's a long ways away. It's very weird scheduling. I understand it TV wise, national wise. Most games are on ESPN, so they need to have it all out there.
I was about to say probably got to do with scheduling of other games and other stuff going on.
So number 4 Oklahoma, number 1 LSU on December 28th at 4 p.m. Oklahoma 12-1 on the year. LSU's 13-0. LSU's favored 13.5 in this game, and that's typical when you have an SEC and a Big 12 team together. That's what it's going to be. Talking about some of the New Year's 6 bowls, Baylor and I believe Georgia is a bigger line than you would think after all the wins Baylor had this past year. But this game particularly, is it a Joe Burrow Heisman winner situation where LSU is going to come in and pretty much sweep the floor with Oklahoma, or does Oklahoma and Jalen Hurts, the former Alabama quarterback, have something to say about it?
One thing that I've learned about college sports is to never just assume a sweep is going to happen. Perfect examples, honestly, I'm going to throw it back to basketball. Back when Florida Gulf Coast made that run, that Cinderella run, I believe that was in 2014. And then last year's Duke and UCF game, everyone thought that Duke was going to absolutely wipe the floor with UCF, and that was a pretty close game up until the final buzzer.
Yeah.
I believe it was like a 4-point win because of fouls and stuff, but I've just learned that I never expect a full annihilation in college sports, and that I think is what makes college sports so fantastic.
Yeah, the unpredictability. And college football is one of those things where, especially when you have the heavyweight teams, and I think the number one thing here to look at is the fact that Oklahoma has an SEC national championship winning quarterback.
Right.
He's been on the stage before. He's done it before. He's filled in. He's come back. He's had so much adversity to deal with, Jalen Hurts has, and hopefully he can get to the NFL and be a productive quarterback. On the other side of things, another guy over there is looking to be a productive quarterback in the NFL. He won the Heisman over Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow. And LSU has been phenomenal this year. you would have to really, really convince me. You'd probably have to hypnotize me to make me not pick LSU in this game. And it's not because they're a number one seed. It's not because Vegas is picking them 13.5. It's because of Joe Burrow and the Heisman offense that he has, particularly contrived this year. And it's fantastic. And I think with this team, they are only going to get better and better. So,
fun fact for you, I never pay attention to Vegas odds.
Really?
I swear.
I like to with college football just because of how special college football is.
I mean, I look at them, but I never would base my decision off Vegas odds.
So who are you picking then? Are you going to go with Jalen Hurts in Oklahoma if you're not going to go with Vegas odds, or will you go with the Heisman quarterback and his deadly offense?
I think Oklahoma has a chance. I think Oklahoma could win. I'm going to go with Oklahoma. To be
okay,
honest.
I told you. Are you a hypnotist?
I might be.
If you are, you
never
probably
know.
can get me to agree with you. If you're not a hypnotist, I can't.
You never know.
I can't do that, man.
I might be.
No, that's not. We're not getting into this. If you just got hypnotized at home, I'm sorry. It's not my fault.
Be careful.
By the way, for those listening on podcast, Mikey just took out his keys and tried to hypnotize me. So the second college football playoff game, PlayStation Fiesta Bowl on December 28th at 8 p.m. Number 3 Clemson and number 2 Ohio State. This one a lot more interesting. Clemson is only favored by 2.5.
That's a close game.
Not one of the Clemson teams that I'll buy in for. They are the 3 seed in this for a reason. Ohio State has had some crushing wins, but it's Ohio State. It's a Big Ten team.
I was about to say, Ohio State's kind of had a big year this year.
They've had a big year, but Clemson being in the ACC, they don't have a lot of... This is really challenging for me because let's look at the ACC in football, right? To me, they're not that challenging.
No.
Florida State was terrible this year, and that was been the only competition for Clemson for years.
Fair enough. Listen, Florida State hasn't had a good year since
James Winston, the national championship. Yeah, and so... This is one of those harder games to pick, and I think if you're a betting man or you like to pick the Vegas odds, you go with Clemson. You go with the 2.5. Ohio State, it's tough.
I'm not feeling that.
They're a 2 seed. I don't feel the 2 seed. I like Dabo Swinney. I think that team and the culture there is just better. Ohio State has played very well in the past. They've won national championships with Urban Meyer and company, but there was a game this year. I forget who they played. They were down a little bit. And it's tough to remember because, I remember watching it, but Urban Meyer was commenting on the games, and Urban Meyer was talking about some of the Ohio State flaws, and they were playing a team that they should have easily beaten, and it was a close
exactly what game you're
contest.
talking about. I don't remember who they played, but I know exactly what game
for those out
about.
there, please comment below and tell me what game they played in.
Drop it below.
Yeah, but so I'm going to take Clemson and Dabo Swinney. I just trust them, even though the ACC is not as competitive as it used to be. I think Ohio State's too. I guess the word sketchy is a good word for me. They're too sketchy. I can't get myself behind them.
I just love how close the line is.
And the national championship game, if LSU and Clemson win, say my picks win, probably won't be a good of a line. But say Oklahoma wins. Either of those teams are going to be a good matchup for Oklahoma.
Another close line.
So,
I like that. I like that a lot.
That'll be really interesting. So make sure to watch those games. December 28th, the college football playoff, and then the national championship will be December 13th. And we just found that out ourselves.
January 13th.
January, what did I say?
December.
Oh, it's January 13th. Sorry.
We're way past
Christmas Day. We should be with our families. What's going on?
We're rattled.
Why are we here?
We're here.
We're grinding.
We're grinding. We're in the studio, and we're
definitely
grinding.
December 25th. We are recording this on December 25th. So one more thing in bowl games, and then we'll move on to the next topic. New Year's 6 games. There's 4 of them. Mikey and I are only going to pick one of each that interest us. Mikey, we'll start with you. What New Year's 6 bowl game are you interested in?
I'm gonna go with the Sugar Bowl.
The Sugar Bowl.
Baylor and Georgia.
All-State Sugar Bowl.
All-State Sugar Bowl, baby. I love the line is Georgia by 6. Although Baylor had a pretty decent year this year and won some games, played really well.
They played really well.
Georgia, on the other hand, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to go with the line. I'm going to go with Georgia.
I'm going to go with Georgia.
I don't think it's going to be by 6, but I think it'll be a close game.
SEC teams reign supreme. Big 12 team. Good offense, bad defense, typically. But Baylor had a good year this year. And again...
I was a big fan of Georgia last year, too, to be honest with you.
And it's just one of those things where you can always pick the SEC team and be safe.
Yep.
And they may not win. We saw UCF, the couple of times that they've won their bowl games. Nobody would have predicted any of that.
No.
Especially when they beat Auburn.
I was about to say, that was a big one.
Last year versus LSU, kind of sad, but it shows this year how good they are, so it's fine. They're in the national. They could be in the national championship.
Yep.
New Year's 6 bowl game, I think I would go with Georgia too. Baylor, again, credit to them. Fantastic
great
year.
year.
They had some great upsets. They were phenomenal. So I'm a big 12 Baylor fan from this year, but it's hard to go against Georgia. Jake Fromm, could be a potential draft pick. And
like you said, you can pick an SEC team.
SEC team easily,
be
yeah.
safe.
It's a safe move. And listen, we're trying to be as accurate as possible here. This is not coffee talk where we can mess around. This is one of those things where we got to be, to the point and honest of how we feel about things. Yeah. My New Year's Six game, my favorite New Year's Six game. You wake up early in the morning, you put on TV, and you see the Rose Parade for the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. That's my favorite bowl game to watch.
I love the Rose
That's my
Bowl.
favorite thing to watch.
It's the prettiest bowl.
It's the prettiest bowl game for sure. I mean, Pasadena's absolutely stunning. Never been there, but I just seen pictures. Number 6, Oregon, and number 8, Wisconsin. And number 8, another game, Mikey, where the higher seed, just like Ohio State and Clemson, the higher seed is favorited. Wisconsin favorited by 3.5 over Oregon. That is the closest line of any New Year's Six bowl game, by the way. The other bowl games, I believe, what is it? Auburn and Minnesota?
Yes,
Auburn and Minnesota. And then what's the other one?
I just looked at it.
Oh, God. This is going to hurt me. I have it all pulled up, actually, at the moment. Right here. Minnesota, Auburn.
Michigan,
Alabama, which I think is going to be an absolute sniper fest for Alabama. And I don't think Michigan has a chance. And if they win, cheers.
Props to them, honestly. Happy New Year.
But yeah, cheers to them. But I don't think that's going to happen. This is hard because, again, another Pac-12. This is the first Pac-12 team we're actually talking about versus another Big Ten Wisconsin team. Wisconsin was fantastic this year. That's why they're favored over a higher-ranked opponent. Oregon had a good year in the Pac-12. This is a close one, Mikey, but I'm going to stick with my guts, stick with my guns in the Big Ten, and I'm going to go with Wisconsin and the Badgers.
I knew it. I called that one.
You going to go with Oregon and the Duckies?
I don't really have an opinion about this game.
You don't have an opinion about this game?
To be honest with you, I don't have an opinion.
Oregon's got some cool uniforms.
You
can pick them based upon their uniforms.
Based upon their uniform.
Based upon their uniform.
I don't know. I don't really have an opinion about that one. I'm indifferent. Whoever wins, honestly, Happy New Year, like I said.
Also, talking about this is actually a good year for Florida State teams. We're obviously out of Orlando, Florida here, where we do our podcasts and things like that. So let's just pay a huge shout out to UCF, who participated the other day in the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa versus Marshall. We can't say for sure if they won, but we're going to say congrats if they did.
If not,
better
luck
next year. We can't say for
sure
because of some timing constraints. We're in the Matrix, but
we are currently in the Matrix. We are talking. Okay, so this is actually the crazy thing. We're here on Christmas, but in reality, it's the 23rd. So
you just gave it away. So now we're not in the Matrix.
We are in the Matrix.
Merry Christmas. But no. So at Florida State and the Gators as well, all teams have made a bowl game this year. Poor USF. USF fired Charlie Strong and hired Willie Taggart again. So and FAU. Oh no, FAU hired Willie Taggart. That's a lie. Sorry about that. FAU hired Willie Taggart because FAU lost.
Who did USF hire?
I don't know. Somebody else. Somebody irrelevant. But anyway, yeah, sorry, FAU and USF, that you're getting discredited. Shout out Stetson, though. They played this year. Also, huge shout out to University of West Florida for winning the D2 National Championship. That was weird.
I like that. Championship.
D2 team. That's probably why I said it wrong. Anyway, let's move things along because we are way behind as per typical Adjusted Man Sports. Our topic number 2. James Wiseman, the highly coveted prospect who went to Memphis and just has had controversy after controversy after controversy, mainly because of Penny Hardaway, has decided to leave Memphis to prepare for the NBA draft. Now, that is not the crazy part of this. Everybody knows James Wiseman is going to be one of the greatest players coming to the NBA draft, who's probably only played 3 games or less in an NCAA history. He's basically a high school player who just is going to the draft and skipped a year off. The whole ball situation that they're doing still.
The other kid who went to New Zealand.
Oh yeah, the kids that go abroad.
I don't remember his name, but
yeah. And that happens more than we think. But just to catch people up, Wiseman missed the past 7 games at Memphis due to a 12-game suspension due to an NCAA investigation that was set on January 12th, I believe, this past year. And this past Thursday, he made this announcement. This happened. Penny Hardaway gave Wiseman's mother $11,500 before accepting the head coaching job at his alma mater. Whether or not to do any finances, maybe they needed help with the money, and they knew that this was going to be a plan plan all along. Whatever it may be, the NCAA ruled this as an issue, and they suspended him for 12 games. And he's only played 3 games as a Memphis Tiger, and that will do it there. That's it. He's done. He's going to go to the NBA after this. Wiseman's decision took the Memphis coaching staff by surprise, which, are you kidding me? Is that serious? They were surprised.
Like Penny Hardaway was surprised.
They put him in this predicament.
Truly, I don't know.
That's unbelievable.
That payment happened in 2017. So honestly, I was just about to ask him before you said this. Like, did we ever know truthfully what that payment was for? Like,
no, it never.
Because that payment happened in 2017. Did he really know that he was going to take this?
They appealed. They lost the appeal.
Well, of course they were going to lose.
Hardaway was a $1 million donation to the school in 2008. He was a booster. This Wiseman made his decision at that point, so maybe that's what it was. Penny Hardaway was a booster. Wiseman committed, and then that was the end of that. He probably definitely committed early.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. Like you unfortunately put this young man, this great talent, like you said,
he's going to be phenomenal.
He's phenomenal in the NBA, and basically a high school player. Honestly, every one and done to me is a high school player going straight to the league because, like Zion looked the exact same his senior year in high school versus his 1 year at Duke. And granted, we haven't seen him play an NBA game yet, but so you only played 3 games in college. You put this young man in this predicament by paying his family money, and you're gonna come out and say you're shocked. I'm not buying that.
No, I'm not buying it either.
I'm not buying that at all.
Golden State Warriors coach Steve Kerr said that in an interview about this situation, he said 2 of the top prospects are playing professionally in Australia. I think the trend is growing and these players are thinking of other options. Mikey just mentioned this a second ago, and Steve Kerr's right. This is going to become a thing until the NCAA decides. Now they briefly decided to start to pay players a little bit based off their name and their recognition and things like that. Autographs and stuff like that is now technically legal in the NCAA. But as far as giving them more money to survive and to live in college, besides tuition and things like that, that is not a realistic thing, and I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, just because of all the issues that come around.
There's other things surrounding that whole argument. Like, you can make the argument that kids are going there on a full ride, which is money within itself in its own way. But this whole situation, and on top of Steve Kerr's comments, I really respect his comments. He's not wrong. He's a
realist. I picked that quote because he defines what I think the new generation of basketball.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And
coaching wise,
this is honestly just gonna hurt college basketball as a whole in the future. Like I said, there's always going to be that argument whether kids should make more money, and now that the NCAA finally agreed to pay their athletes in some way, shape, or form, there's always going to be that argument of, well, they should be compensated more, they should be able to live, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then like he said, you got you got number 1 and number 2 coming into this draft. They're playing overseas.
Yeah.
And they're playing in professional basketball,
and they're coming in without any issues, without any hesitation.
Any issues. LaMelo Ball is on the cusp, but because of his father. But
well, that's a whole situation.
Still, yeah. No issues. They're killing it right now in the NBL. LaMelo Ball is looking like honestly number one overall for this next year's draft. And then you got your projected number 3 pick, which I also think is just nuts. And we're talking about this whole controversy. He's not even projected to be number 1.
Yeah.
But you got this top 5 pick, and he only played 3 games in college, and now he's done, and he's gone from Memphis.
Yeah, and Kerr also said there's players who have taken a year off, played at IMG Academy until they're draft eligible, which we know a lot about being down here in Florida. Mm-hmm. The NBA is getting a lot better with player development through the G League. That's what Kerr also said that as well, which is interesting. We've seen that with Taco Fall recently.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of things going out there as far as what they may do.
I think the NBA needs to really open up the G League even
also,
more.
Hardaway has not commented about this.
Oh, of course not.
So
I think that's his guilty conscience.
Yeah, so that's a little interesting.
Not allowing him to speak on it.
That's a little interesting to me.
Which, like I said, you put that young man in that predicament.
They did. It's their fault. 100% their fault. What are they going to argue?
And the only thing that I didn't really agree with from the NCAA is they forced a donation, I think, from Wiseman.
Yeah.
They forced a donation from Wiseman. Not really sure how I feel about that.
I was upset about that.
But
again, you putting the man in a tough situation.
Exactly.
There's not much you could do after that.
Exactly. Agreed.
So moving on to our next topic. Before we get there, we'd like to just remind you that Just a Man in Sports is brought to you by Enigmatic Entertainment, the next generation of fashion, music, film, and entertainment media. On social media at Enigmatic Entertainment on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also check out their website for the latest news on featured artists, events, and apparel at engmtc.co. Last topic today before we get into the rundown and the MVP coach and team of the week, which we do every episode as well. The New York Mets and the Wilpons, the owners, have been trying to sell the franchise for quite some time now. They've had some people who have had stake in their organization, including this man, Steve Cohen, a billionaire who owns a small percentage of the New York Mets. They've negotiated a deal to increase the investment over time within 5 years and take the team initially away from Fred and Jeff Wilpon. Cohen is reportedly to acquire 80% of the team, which is valued at $2.6 billion. And he's an investor hedge fund manager. His estimated worth is $13 billion. So he's got money, Mikey. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
He's a New York native. He's actually a Long Island native out of Great Neck, who's an executive officer at Point72 Asset Management, which I actually know some people who work for that, ironically. But if you missed anything I just said, because I said it really fast, he is increasing his investment. He owns a small percentage of the New York Mets over a 5-year span. So what that means is he is going to own the team solely by
the next
5 years, 2025, 2024, whichever they categorize as their first year. I'm assuming 2025.
2025.
Yeah. So think of it this way. This is an analogy, and I can't take all the credit for this analogy because when my grandfather calls me on the phone, he is very smart. He's from a generation where the Mets didn't even exist. The New York Giants was his favorite team, the baseball Giants. And he's seen a lot of teams do this in the past, and he's never understood it because it's basically like this. Let's say, Mikey, you're leasing a home. Say you're leasing this home that we're in right now. Okay, you're leasing this home, and you tell the owner at the end of 2019 that you want to buy it out in 5 years. Right. Basically, you're going to say, okay, now my equity going towards the rent is going to be a mortgage, but I want to pay you the mortgage, not the bank, because I don't want interest and I don't want any of that. So they've decided you're going to pay off the owner 5 years from now. Now, as the former owner, as the Wilpons, who are getting this money in, let's switch roles. Let's say I'm the guy paying you the money, you're the owner. And I'm paying off the house that you paid for, that you finally want to get the money for, and you've probably already gotten some back due from rent.
Right.
Are you going to put any more money into fixing up the house if you're selling it and it's going to be completely resolved in 5 years and you're finally getting what you paid back for it, probably?
No, absolutely not.
So what's to say the Wilpons are going to put any money in the budget for the Mets over the next 5 years? Matter of fact, what's to say they're going to add anything or drop anything at all to the budget? Now, the Wilpons have no say of who to go after. Right. That's Brody Van Wagenen's, the GM's job. But it scares me that the Mets are a team on the cusp of becoming really good. Matter of fact, I think the Mets could win the NL East next year with so much change in the division. The Phillies may be the team to look at, and the Mets as well. The Braves, again, they're going to be good. The Marlins, we don't really have to talk about. The Nationals have lost some really crucial pieces. Even the reigning champs, they've lost a lot of pieces. But I'm concerned for the Mets and any organization and how they're doing this, because it just puts a sort of negative annotation above them and saying, well, yeah, we're going to probably, this is going to be the last offseason that they're going to go for things. And then over the next 4 years, we won't really be adding any money to the budget unless the new owner, Cohen, he's got $13 billion. I wouldn't say he wouldn't add nothing, but the organization itself is 2.6. So I don't know how much he's already paying off the team. So is he going to want to add more money to the budget while he's paying off the team? It's tough.
As someone, okay, you know this, and if you've watched or listened is the word I'm looking for. If you listened to the show before, I don't really talk about baseball. So as an outsider looking in, honestly, your analogy makes a lot of sense. But if I am Steve Cohen, and yeah, I make a lot of money, and I genuinely want to own this team, and I want to show my players that I am, I'm invested, and within these next 5 years, and upcoming players or whatever are going to come to the organization. Yeah, I'm gonna pour a little bit more money to help this team.
Yeah.
Because and I'm gonna bring it back to basketball. I'm gonna bring it back to Steve Ballmer, the Clippers owner now.
Yeah.
Versus I forgot his name. The
bad guy.
Yeah, the racist one. Steve Ballmer. I mean, that is a man that I would play for. That man is electric.
He's always excited. Yeah.
And he's excited, and he went out and did what he had to do to go get Paul George. He signed Kawhi Leonard and letting Kawhi Leonard basically just take care of his body, and that's the whole topic. That's a whole different topic, but for me as a player, I need to see that an owner who's involved and who's willing to make this team work. Like, I would never want to go play for the Knicks, no offense, just because James Dolan's doesn't care.
I wouldn't either.
He doesn't care.
Yeah.
So as an outsider from looking in, I think Cohen. I hope for Mets fans, that he'll make that decision to, on top of paying off for this team to eventually be a sole owner, just pour a little bit more money into the budget and help that organization get better.
So it's crazy. So just to throw some statistics out there, the Wilpons who are selling the team, the ones who are dropping out, they've owned the Mets since 2002. They bought up the team in 2002 for $135 million. That's not to say that was the total budget. They may have owned a certain stake, and $135 million may have been the outcome. But for the Mets to be worth $2.6 billion today is actually really interesting from 2002. And then in 1980, the Mets were bought out for $21 million, which is crazy. The Mets, by the way, since the Wilpons have taken over, they've been in the playoffs 2006, 2015, and 2016. They lost to the Kansas City Royals heartbreakingly in 2015. Thanks a lot, Lucas Duda. Let's move on, because I could talk about this for days. But it is a weird scenario. If you have anything about this that you want to talk to us about, please check us, Just a Minute Sports, out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Just a Minute Sports. Just look it up. We're the only ones with that name. And please tweet at us about this, especially when the episode posts. What do you think about that? What do you think about the Wilpons selling the team? What do you think about this guy who owns stake of it and trying to pay it out over 5 years? Do you think that they'll still have a nice budget and still be able to compete, or will you think that the Mets will kind of drop until the new owner takes sole ownership? So, cue the music. Perfect. Okay, it's the rundown. Time for the rundown. You know the rundown, 30 seconds for each topic. Mikey has one. We're going to do 8 of them today. The 8th one is Mikey's. I have no idea what it is. I forgot already what he told me it was. Let's begin. 30 seconds on the clock. Here we go. Garrett Cole has signed with the New York Yankees. Is this deal worth it or not? $324 million for 9 years.
Okay,
Mikey.
I saw this on ESPN when I was at the barbershop, and my jaw dropped to the floor. $324 million over 9 years. That's a lot of money.
I pitched too. Why can't I? What is the difference between me and Garrett Cole?
I will not lie to you. I don't know anything about Garrett Cole. I have no idea. But
we have 5 seconds
for securing that bag.
It's
worth it.
9 years, it's worth it. Yeah, I'll take that. And there's the alarm. 30 seconds on the clock. Here we go. Carmelo Anthony is striving in the NBA as a trailblazer after he was finally picked up by a team. Does this continue?
I love this. Yes, absolutely. Yes. I think he's bought into that whole role, especially, yes, he is starting right now, but when Nurk comes back, Gasol comes back, and they have another big man who's out. I can't think of his name, but anyway, for the sake of time, I'm just going to skip over it. When they come back, he will take over that essentially 6-man role come off the bench.
I'm just mad he didn't come to the Knicks. I was so frustrated about that. Like, the Knicks had one job to do. They had one job. Yeah, I'd have him again. The Cleveland Browns next year. Do they bounce back from this just horrid and confusing year? Or do they completely restructure, meaning one of the parts that Odell Beckham is probably also out the window?
Yeah, no, Odell, I think, is gone. Baker Mayfield had high expectations this year and just did not come close to any of those expectations. I think they're in a rebuild next year. Yeah,
I think so too. I think they can't get rid of don't get rid of everybody. But,
don't get rid of everybody.
The Giants made that mistake, but definitely just find a balance because they're struggling. All right, next one. What's next for Joe Burrow, the current quarterback for LSU in the NFL? He's a potential number 1 overall draft pick. Do you believe in this guy?
Heisman winner. I agree. I believe in him. I believe.
Yeah, most of the Heisman winners, especially quarterbacks, have done fairly well over the last decade. Lamar Jackson's doing great. Cam Newton's struggling. Baker Mayfield's struggling.
Jameis won the Heisman, right?
Yeah. Jameis had 4 interceptions this past weekend. So
Hit or miss.
That's such a hard one to talk about. I think he will. It's hard. Again, just to show you how hard it is. 30 seconds on the clock. Here we go. NCAA men's basketball. The best team by the end of the year will be
Tar Heels. Bias.
Tar Heels?
I'm just kidding. Honestly, I don't know.
Tar Heels.
I don't know.
Are you crazy?
I'm nuts. I'm insane. I'm a fan.
Tar Heels?
I'm a fan.
Oh my god.
We don't even make it out of the first round.
I have not. Mikey
If I'm honest,
just,
we don't make it out of the first round.
I don't even remember what I was gonna say. I want to go. I guess.
Hot take.
I don't know. Auburn, the Auburn Tigers. I'm over it.
Oh,
that was just terrible, Mike.
Come on. Man.
Well, Antonio Brown was reportedly in a music video the other day. I saw that on Twitter. Will he ever return to the NFL or any football sporting event in history of sports ever?
Yes, I do not think this is a Kaepernick situation where he just will
It's not. Yeah, it's completely
different. Not in terms of the situation, but just him just being like basically blacklisted from the league. I think he returns next year.
It is his fault.
Once his whole case gets cleared up, I think he'll be back in the league next year.
We'll see, man. I don't know. Antonio Brown. I'm going to restart this one because I just fluttered. Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, and Chris Bosh headline a incredible 2020 Hall of Fame inductee class. Is this too early for those 4, or is this just right?
No, I think that's just right.
Okay.
I mean, how long has Kobe been retired for?
Kobe Bryant.
Tim Duncan.
Kevin Garnett's good.
Kevin Garnett, I feel like it's a little bit long overdue.
Kevin Garnett lives on some island in the Bahamas. I don't know where Kevin Garnett is. I don't think it's too early. I agree. I think it's just right.
It's just right.
Perfect, I think
actually.
it's pretty cool to see them do that. All right, the last one, Mikey. What do you got? 30 seconds.
All right, is Deion Waiters' career over? It was reported this morning that there's multiple teams around the league.
This was your doozy?
Yeah, this is a pretty good topic for the Miami Heat team. Deion Waiters. Listen, Deion Waiters a couple seasons ago was having a great stretch of his career.
10 seconds.
Then got hurt. Is his career over or not?
I don't think so. He's been playing well.
He's been hurt,
He's been the Heat's guy.
Overdosed on THC gummies, Casey.
Well, that's also something. The MLB just made marijuana legal, so I don't know if that's it. All right, just stop the music for the rundown and start the music for the MVP, coach, and team of the week. Thank you, Casey, for putting that on the edit. Team of the week, coach of the week, MVP of the week. We do these every week. Mikey, we'll start with you. Who is your team of the week and why?
OKC Thunder, because this was a team coming like from the offseason. Nobody expected to even be in playoff contention. Everyone ruled out Chris Paul, said that he wasn't a winner, and they are 15-17, not 500, but they're 7th place in the West. 15-17, you're under 500 and you're 7th place in the West. That's amazing.
That's amazing. I have something even better. Denver Nuggets have won 6 straight games in a row. They're 7-3 in their last 10, and they're second, surprisingly, in the Western Conference. In a stacked, in my opinion, Western Conference, because I think it's much better now with more diversity around the league. I mean, Russell Westbrook went to Houston, but there's still a lot more diversity. LA Clippers, now Denver,
the Lakers,
now as well.
Denver.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of it. Even Dallas is a sleeper team, in my opinion.
Dirk's still there, secretly. All right, coach of the week, who do you got?
I got Brad Stevens for getting the crowd hyped
Taco Fall.
before putting Taco Fall in the game. I really respect that. I respected that a lot.
I got Bill O'Brien, the former Penn State head coach, Houston Texans head coach now. Houston, by the way, we want to talk about a sleeper in the NFL. The Texans clinched the AFC South, which some are going to argue in the comments, Casey, the AFC South is not hard to win. It's the Jaguars, Titans, and Colts. Well, you're wrong. The Titans and Colts actually had a pretty good year. The Jaguars, they got Gardner Minshew. They'll be fine. But they're the 3 seed in the entire playoffs. They had a 10-5 record this year. Deshaun Watson has still been playing enough to get to the playoffs. They remind me of like a throwback, I don't even know how to say it, like a Pittsburgh Steelers team back in the day when they were really good. This was the kind of the same records they would have. So, and they won the World Series with Big Ben. So, huge shout out to Bill O'Brien. He's kept that team consistent. That's the most important message of all of this. They've been probably one of the more consistent teams, besides maybe New England, I guess you want to argue with me, to go in the playoffs since Deshaun Watson has joined their team.
I like that.
MVP of the week, Mikey, who do you got?
Bam Adebayo, averaging 28.5, I think, over the last 10 games, or I think it was 5 or 10 games. Can't honestly remember, but that kid is something special.
He's very, very good.
I like
it just shows that just shows the progression. of how young you could be and get to the NBA. My MVP of the week, Danny Dimes. Daniel Jones, 5 touchdowns in the win versus Washington this past weekend. He also went out to a club with the entire Giants team and played Flip Cup with Eli Manning. If that's not your MVP of the week, then I don't know who is, because that's fantastic to see that. One of the most electric videos I have ever seen. That about does it for us here for Just Man Sports. Mikey, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, it's been a pleasure. Mikey's probably going to come again on soon, probably next month. But Mikey, he may never see another episode again. He may see a lot of coffee talks because again, that's Mikey saw that and his eyes lit up.
Unfiltered, and I think that is just the most perfect place for me.
It's going to be really, really funny. So for Mikey Eastman and myself, Casey Wright, we're saying so long, everybody. Until next time, you've been listening to us on either YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or SoundCloud. I'm Casey Wright, and this is Just a Man in Sports. So long, everybody.